the darkest crimes of evil kings, are not the ones written in textbooks. They're the ones history tried to hide, buried beneath crowns, power, and silence. Power has a way of twisting even the youngest soul. Nero, the last emperor of Rome's infamous Julio-Claudian dynasty, was just 16 when he inherited an empire. His childhood was a tangled mix of tragedy, betrayal, and ambition. His father died when Nero was barely a boy, and his mother was sent into exile on a tiny island, possibly for plotting against Emperor Caligula. When Caligula was assassinated, she returned to power, marrying the new emperor, her own uncle. Suddenly, young Nero found himself heir to a throne he barely understood, guided by a mother whose thirst for power knew no limits. Agrippina was a master strategist, ruthless and brilliant. She maneuvered her family like pieces on a chessboard, eliminating rivals and making sure her son would rise. In 54 AD, Emperor Claudius died under mysterious circumstances, likely poisoned. Almost immediately, Nero's stepbrother, Britannicus, who also had a claim to the throne, died as well. At 16, Nero was alone at the top of one of the greatest empires in history. At first, his reign wasn't all darkness. He banned capital punishment, supported the arts, gave disaster relief to neighboring cities, lowered taxes, and even extended limited rights to slaves. For a brief moment, he seemed decent. But power is a dangerous thing, and it can corrupt even the most promising ruler. His own mother, once his ally, became a threat. In a chilling political move, Nero had her killed, disguised to look like an accident. From there, the descent was swift. Nero's paranoia and ambition merged with cruelty. Rivals disappeared, allies were exiled, and even friends were murdered over petty slights. His affair with Poppaea Sabina, a married noblewoman, ended in tragedy. Both she and their unborn child died under his orders. Senators, former friends, anyone he saw as an obstacle, gone. Then came the fire of 64 AD, the event that would forever define Nero's name. A massive blaze swept through Rome, destroying nearly 3/4 of the city. Some stories claim Nero started it himself, clearing space for a new, grand palace. Legends say he played music as the city burned, though historians debate if that's true. Eventually, the Senate declared Nero a public enemy. Refusing to be captured, he chose his own fate, ending his 13-year reign with a knife to his neck. Rome survived, but the shadow of Nero's cruelty, ambition, and madness would echo through history for centuries. Power often wears a calm face, but behind it lies a shadow. Ferdinand I of Naples, nicknamed Fanti, might have seemed unremarkable at first glance, a tall, quiet man, but in the late 1400s, he was one of the most feared rulers in Europe. Born the illegitimate son of King Alfonso of Aragon, Ferdinand inherited the throne at 35. He brought 2 decades of relative peace and prosperity to Naples, yet to his enemies, he was merciless. In 1462, nobles dared to challenge him, attempting to place a pretender on the throne. Ferdinand acted swiftly. The rebellion was crushed, the traitors punished. Over the years, he faced new threats, including an Ottoman invasion in 1480. The southeast region of Salento fell, forcing Ferdinand to demand full mobilization and heavy taxation to fund the defense. Naples survived, but his nobles, burdened and resentful, tried again to rebel. This time, Ferdinand was done with mercy. He invited the rebels to a meeting, granted them amnesty, and then murdered them. Their bodies were mummified, dressed, and displayed in what he called his Black Museum, a grim warning to anyone who might oppose him again. His ruthlessness was calculated, a clear message: cross him, and death would follow. Ferdinand ruled with a mix of vision and terror, balancing prosperity for his kingdom with cruelty for his enemies. His reign ended not with glory, but with illness, and soon after his death, Naples fell to the French. Yet the shadow of Ferdinand's fearsome reputation lingered, proof that history often remembers not just the peace a king creates, but the darkness he leaves behind. Power can shape the smallest body into a colossal force. Timur, known to history as Tamerlane, was called lame not for weakness of spirit, but for injuries as a child, an arrow to the knee, another to the hand, leaving him permanently crippled. Yet his body could not contain his ambition. By the early 1400s, he had forged an empire spanning Central Asia, Persia, the Middle East, and parts of South Asia and Eastern Europe. Timur was brilliant, a master strategist, but brilliance came with brutality. Cities that surrendered often survived, but defiance, no matter how small, was met with merciless vengeance. Isfahan, once a thriving center of culture, music, and learning, surrendered to him. Initially, he spared its people, leaving soldiers to maintain order. But when rebels killed some of his men, Timur returned, and his vengeance was absolute. Every man, woman, and child, tens of thousands, were slaughtered. Soldiers were forced to bring him heads to prove their loyalty, and failure meant death. Entire families, even children, were trampled, a horror he oversaw himself. Timur's campaigns didn't just topple armies, they erased lives, cultures, and histories. By the time he died in 1405, his conquests had claimed an estimated 17 million people, roughly 5% of the world's population at the time. And yet, for all the fear he inspired, there were human stories in his shadow, the lives lost, the families shattered, the cities that would never rise again. Timur's empire reminds us that power, unchecked, doesn't just conquer, it haunts. And history never forgets the echoes of those screams. History remembers crowns and conquests, but it often forgets the screams beneath them. If you want more stories history tried to bury, subscribe, because the darkest truths are still waiting.